Once the JDK, the Java Development Kit, is installed, we need to set up what are called the environment variables. I'm not quite sure what all that means, but let's kind of figure that out. Let's stumble along and figure this out as we go. So if I were to type CMD here in my search window, search bar or whatever it's called, and click on Command Prompt, this is my command window. And I'm just going to type in Java because that's what it said to do in the book. And I get this Java is not recognized internal blah, blah, blah. So I've got an error already, and I don't know what that means or how to fix it. So let's jump in and figure that out. I'm going to use Notepad++ as an example to demonstrate setting up environment and variables. So when we see an icon or something in our Windows screen, we just double click on it and we take it for granted that it brings up the application and everything's dandy. But what's really happening, let's look. I right clicked on Notepad++. I'm going to right click on the Notepad++ again and right click or normal click, left click on properties, click, 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 click. And here you're going to see this target, and target tells Windows where to go to find Notepad++, the executable file, which is the actual program. And so when you're double clicking on this icon, this is the target, is the path that's telling Windows where to find the executable file that launches Notepad++. In other words, let's go back into the command prompt here. If I just typed in Notepad++, just similar to what I just did with Java, I'm going to get an unrecognized internal or external command, and that's because I'm sitting here in this path and the Notepad++ executable file isn't here. So we don't know where to run it. The Windows doesn't know at this point where to find that executable file. It needs to know the path in order to find that executable file. So what you can do is, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to keep this up here. What we can do is called setting an environmental variable. And I'm going to right click on my little window here, and I'm going to choose Control Panel. And in my Control Panel, I'm going to go to System. And System, I'm going to go to Advanced System Settings, and eventually get to this button that says Environment Variables. And I'm going to click on that. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but all I want you to focus on is where it says System Variables. And then we see this path. Okay, this is the one I'm interested in, path. If I click on path and I click Edit, what we're looking at here are predetermined paths that we're asking Windows, if we don't automatically tell you where the path to find Notepad++ is, if we don't give you the path, here's all the places I want you to look. If it can't find Notepad++ in this environment variable path, we'll get that internal command, Notepad++ not found. So what we can do, instead of having to type this in all the time, we can set up, I'm going to do New, and I'm going to browse to where that Notepad++ exists, which was in C, and exists in program 86, and it was in the Notepad++ directory, so eventually I'll get down there, and click on OK. So now we're saying, if you can't find it, if we just type in notepad++.exe, which we just did a few minutes ago, here's a place to automatically look. So let's see, if I click on OK, and I'm going to save, so that automatically saves it. Let's get out of all of this just to keep things clean. Let's go into our command window now and type in Notepad++, and Windows should now know where to find it. And in fact it did, because it's set in our environment path, and so we found Notepad++ and all is running smoothly. Because now Windows knows where to look for it. And once we set it there in our control panel, even when we reboot our machine, it should still be in the path. So now we're good there. So let's do the same thing with Java. So if I type in Java, same issue, right? It's not in my environmental variables path. So let's figure out how to do that. All right, so I'm going to open up Explorer window, and let's find, I just happen to know where it is, and that's sometimes where the disadvantage is. You really have to pay attention when you install a software where it gets installed. And so in this case, I know that my Java SDK is going to be in C, and then it's going to be in Program Files, and then it's going to be in a directory called Java. And in Java, I have several JDKs that are installed, so I want the most current one. JDK 1.8 is the one I have installed, the most current one I have installed at the moment. And then in the bin directory, which stands for binary, in the bin directory, I've got quite a number of exe files, don't I? And we're going to see that we'll play with one called, let's see, there's Java C. We're going to see that to compile, Java to run. So these are commands that we can use in the command line. So we're going to want to make sure that this path is in our environment variables. And so let's see, I'll leave this up for reference so I can remember where it was. So let's close this out again for clarity. I'm going to right click on the window. I'm going to go to Control Panel. I'm going to go back to System, Advanced System Settings, Environment Variables, go back to this path and edit it. So that path is not, that Java path isn't in here. I'm going to add it. Browse. This is tedious, isn't it? But once it's set the first time, you shouldn't have to do this again. So we were going to go to C. We're going to go to Program Files. We're going to go to Java and the SDK, the most current one, and then the bin directory, and click on OK. Click on OK, and then I'm going to get all the way out just for keeping my windows clean. And so now when I go to my command window and I type in Java, JVA, yay! So I don't know what all this means yet. You're going to show me this eventually, I hope. Yes, I will. But in the meantime, for sure, at least I know now that that Java file is running, and I should have access to the compiler and things that I'm going to need to run things from the command prompt. So that's how you set your environment variables. That's how you set your path. And now that it's set, you shouldn't have to set it again when you reboot your machine and come into your command window here. You should be able to type in Java and see all of these commands. I don't know what they mean yet, but I'm going to. But at least I have not that nasty error that we had when we started off this session. So now the next thing to do is start writing code.